Who do you employ?
We employ a very talented group of professionals that have really amazing credentials. They have graduate degrees from NYU and USC in business administration as well as taxation. Many of my colleagues have been with the firm for over 25 years, in one case for 35 years. I'm very proud to be associated with this group of people.
Who are your principal clients?
We represent approximately 100 high net worth individuals and the companies that they own and operate. In addition to that, we do work for governmental agencies such as the Department of Justice, the state of Alaska, the state of California, and the city of Long Beach.
What's your educational background?
I started my college career utilizing the GI Bill. I served 4 years in the Air Force and was fortunate enough to have that opportunity. My undergraduate degree was in business administration, and I have a master's degree in business administration from the University of Southern California. After completing my graduate degree at USC, I took several tax classes, corporate, fiduciary, estate and gift, and subject matters such as that.
Do you have any other experience with education?
Yes, I was a former professor of accounting and taxation at California State University, located in Los Angeles,
who's
California.
Testifying right now.
What kind of
Welcome,
work
those
do
of
you
you who are
personally
joining.
do?
The work I do is primarily transaction-oriented. Acquisitions of companies, dispositions, that is buying or selling a company, arranging financing with large financial institutions, consulting with clients where they feel it's appropriate for me to be involved, assisting my colleagues. As I mentioned to you, we have approximately 100 high net worth individual clients, and there's always something that I can contribute to.
Do you hold any certifications?
Yes, I'm certified in financial forensics by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. I'm also a member of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the California Society of Certified Public Accountants. And of course, I'm a certified public accountant.
Afternoon, everyone.
What are financial forensics?
That's an attempt to ascertain not only the facts, but what transpired as relates to financial activity. So you do a study based upon financial records. You then look at contracts. You look at other financial information in an attempt to, once again, not only ascertain what the results were, but what caused the results.
Have you ever previously testified in court?
Yes, I've been accepted as an expert witness in both the California court and the federal courts, and I have testified in matters involving the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Okay. Do you serve on any boards, or have you served on any boards?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor. This witness is not being proffered as an expert in this case.
All right.
Wasn't
This
designated.
is just a fact witness and not an expert witness.
Fact witness, and it goes to credibility.
I'll sustain the objection. I think we can move on.
Okay. Do you know Mr. Depp?
Yes, I do.
How'd you come to know Mr. Depp?
I met him because he was introduced to me by a senior executive at the Bank of California, Richard Smith.
Do you work with Mr. Depp?
Yes, I do.
In what capacity?
We are his business management firm.
How long have you served in that capacity?
By approximately 6 years.
What does that role involve?
Processing, managing his financial affairs. As you know, Mr. Depp
So this is like
an
the
amazing
accountant
talent.
for Johnny
He
Depp?
didn't actually claim for his work, but he relegated
The money guy.
his financial activities to me and my colleagues. So we provide a wide variety of services for him.
Do you do this kind of work for other people?
Yes, we do. Numerous other clients.
I think so.
When did you first become involved with Mr. Depp?
Approximately 6 years ago, after the introduction from Mr. Smith.
What was the nature of the work that you were to perform for him?
Initially, it was to perform a forensic study, evaluate his financial affairs,
Yeah,
and
but
to
he's not
formulate
an expert
recommendations
witness.
on how he could manage
He's
his
just a fact
affairs in
witness
a more
today. He doesn't sound like an
advantageous
expert.
manner.
After you conducted that analysis, what did you do?
I met with Mr. Depp, the purpose of which was to share with him the results of our findings and to make recommendations on how he could resolve the issues he was confronting.
When was that meeting?
Mr. Depp, that meeting was on April 21st, 2016.
Who called the meeting?
I did. I called the meeting because I felt it was appropriate to meet with Mr. Depp and to discuss his affairs and to provide him with opportunities and plans and strategies to resolve the issues he was confronting.
What were those
Where
issues?
was the meeting held?
It was held at his offices in Los Angeles, California.
Do you know approximately what time it began?
It began at approximately 7:30, and my recollection is there were 7 people in attendance, including
Good-
Mr.
good
Depp
memory.
and myself.
Was alcohol served at the meeting?
Not to my recollection. I don't recall any alcohol being consumed.
Did Mr. Depp stay for the entirety of the meeting?
Oh, yes. He was very interested in the contents. He asked very thoughtful questions. He was fully engaged and fully sensitive to the matters that we were discussing.
Did there come a time when Mr. Depp didn't participate in the meeting?
No, he was very actively involved. He did excuse himself on 2 or 3 occasions. It was my understanding that he was going to contact Ms. Heard and attempt to respond to her concerns and also address the fact that this was an extremely important meeting and that it involved his financial viability and that he felt it imperative to stay and address the issues I was discussing with him.
Okay, so I think
When
we're going
did
to get
the
into some
meeting
juicy
conclude?
details here.
At approximately 9:30. So it went for approximately 2 hours.
At the conclusion of the meeting, what did you observe as to Mr. Depp?
That he was fully engaged once again. He thanked me profusely for not only addressing the problems, but he was excited about the fact there was a strategy and plan to resolve the problems.
This witness is definitely a fan of Johnny Depp, likes
Did he
him very
appear
much.
impaired to you in any way?
No, to the contrary, I found him to
I'm
be,
sorry, sir, there was an objection. All right, what was the objection, I'm sorry?
Leading.
Leading?
Just, I asked him for his observation as to impairment.
Well, if you want to ask different, I'll sustain that objection, but you can ask another question.
Did you make any observations as to Mr. Depp's potential impairment?
it was readily apparent to me that he was actively involved in the conversation. He asked very thoughtful and prudent questions. He was genuinely interested, and once again,
I
when
need
he
my
left,
accountant to talk
he
about
thanked
me
me
like this.
profusely for not only addressing the issues, but formulating a strategy and plan to resolve them in a successful manner.
Loves him.
Did you play any role on Mr. Depp's behalf with respect to the dissolution
I understand,
of his
Michael.
marriage to Ms. Heard?
Yes, I was actively involved in the negotiations of the separation and the marriage dissolve.
What role did you play in those negotiations?
Well, in my capacity as his business manager, I understood his financial capacity and the tax implications associated with it. So I was actively involved in addressing those issues as they were forthcoming from counsel.
You mentioned tax implications. What are you talking about there?
Excuse me?
I think you just mentioned tax implications. What are you talking about there?
Well, what I was talking about is that when Ms. Heard began the negotiations, she was asking for approximately $4 million. That
Objection, Your
balance
Honor.
then was
Foundation,
increased.
Hearsay, lack of foundation, hearsay.
These are requests made by Ms. Heard and her counsel in a conversation, in communications.
Here, you want to approach for a minute?
Certainly.
So they're going to have a sidebar now to discuss this. But the question is it relevant? So therefore, Mr. White, so we have Mr. Edward White on the stand right now. And so now they're getting into questions in regards to Amber's requests and finances. Problem with being famous is you have people like that, and then there are people that like your money or fame. Differentiating the two and weeding out the fake ones is the same for all of us. We hear a lot of, quote unquote, famous people who will say that it's harder and harder to make friends and to have genuine friends and to know who is your friend as you get older and get more successful because you don't know what people's true intentions are. How you doing? Thanks for being here.
As a result of your involvement on behalf of Mr. Depp in the negotiation, what was your understanding of what Ms. Heard was looking for?
She initially was looking for a consideration of $4 million, but her demand continually increased. It went from $4 million to $5 million. Then it went from $5 million to $5.5 million. Then it went to $7 million. And then it was $7 million, and she demanded that Mr. Depp also pay $500,000 to her attorneys. Then, after that consideration, she also said that all the community liabilities that were accumulated
Objection,
during the
Your
course of the
Honor.
marriage, which approximated
Sorry, there's
$13.5
an
million.
objection, sir. Whenever there's an objection, I'm sorry. If you can't hear it, I'll let you know. Okay?
thank you, Your
Yeah, no
This
problem,
just
sir.
goes into his allegations
Your
of
Honor.
what she said, which Your Honor just
He's very polite.
instructed, sustain the objection on that. He has no foundation to suggest that, no knowledge of that.
Your Honor, I understand that. I asked his understanding.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
May I continue?
She'll tell you yes.
Yes. Go ahead, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
He learns very well.
So the next demand was that all of the community liabilities that were unresolved,
Well, guys, and remember, he's talking
$13.5
about
million,
what ended up being their
that Mr.
settlement
Depp had to pay
agreement
those liabilities in its
for the
entirety.
divorce.
So at that point, she was demanding $14,250,000 of consideration. And then it got worse.
And
The
then
next
it got
demand
worse.
was that all of this consideration be paid to her free of taxation. And counselor, for him to pay $14,250,000 to Miss Heard, that would require him to earn approximately
Objection, Your Honor.
$30
This
million.
is so far beyond the scope, so far beyond his foundation of what was discussed.
All right, I'll sustain that last answer. All right. Next question.
Did you make a proposal as to how payments would be made to Ms. Heard?
Yes, I did, and they were initially contemplated to be paid directly to the charities. The Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, for the benefit of the children who required severe medical service, and to the ACLU. During the course of the negotiations, one of the demands, because the contract changed, was that the payments be made directly to Miss Heard.
Did you have
We heard from the
any personal,
ACLU this morning.
involvement with either the ACLU or the Children's Hospital?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
Mr. Depp directed me to issue two $100,000 checks directly to the Children's Hospital Los Angeles. I knew that he was involved and supported their efforts and appreciated his service. In addition to that, he directed me to contribute $100,000 to ACLU. In accordance with his instructions, my colleagues drafted the checks, I executed them, and they were delivered to the two charities.
Did you continue making payments to either of those charities on Ms. Heard's behalf?
No, in fact, I was chastised for making the payments by Ms. Heard's counsel and told that the payments in the future had to go
Objection, Your
directly
Honor.
to her.
This is clear hearsay. He's not answering the question. I would ask for you to instruct him to answer the question and not expound upon his.
I'll sustain as to hearsay. Next question.
What role did you play?
Johnny
with
Depp
respect to
looking
the
at
payments
Amber Heard's
ultimately
attorney.
made to Ms. Heard?
We supplied the payments to Ms. Heard in accordance with the agreement, either on or before the date in which they were required to be paid.
That's right. We heard
The
that several
first
millions of
payments
dollars were
made to Ms.
never
Heard was $2 million
made as
in
promised.
2017.
as part of that divorce settlement.
Then in April of 2017, another payment of $1 million made payable directly to Ms. Heard was made. Then in August of 2017, another $1 million was paid directly to Ms. Heard.
This is
Then in
definitely a favorable
November,
witness for Johnny.
$500,000 was paid directly to Ms. Heard. My colleagues drafted those checks, I executed them, they were delivered on a timely basis. Therefore, in 2017, she was paid $4.5 million directly paid to her. Then on February 1 of 2018, she was paid the final installment of $2.3 million.
For a total of
payments that went
$7.
directly to Ms. Heard of $6.8 million.
Oh, where's the other?
Do you know when this lawsuit was filed?
Yes, it was
She got a
filed
total
on
of
March
$7
1,
million.
2019.
Were the payments that were made on Mr. Depp's behalf directly to Ms. Heard the only economic benefit she received?
Objection leading.
I haven't heard the, go, I'll overrule the objection for us now. Go ahead.
Were the payments made on to Ms. Heard the only economic benefits that she received from the settlement agreement?
No, as I shared with you earlier, Mr. Depp was required to pay $500,000 to Ms. Heard's counsel, which he did in a timely and respectful manner. He was also required to pay all the community liabilities, which accumulated during their 15-month marriage, was approximately $13,500,000. So he paid all the community liabilities. She paid none of them. That's why you have to aggregate the money that was paid directly to her, the money that was paid to her, to the charities on her behalf, the money that was paid to her attorneys, and the relief of all these liabilities that he had to satisfy. That's why I said to you, Counselor, that the total consideration paid to her was $14,250,000, and she demanded that that payment be made free of taxation, that Mr. Depp would have to satisfy all the tax liabilities.
How long were they married for?
They were married for 15 months.
Okay. Were the payments that went to Ms. Heard the only payments that you've made on Mr. Depp's behalf?
No, we satisfied all of his obligations, so it was very customary for us to pay everything that Mr. Depp was obligated to pay.
Yeah, I mean,
Are you
if Johnny had to
familiar with
cover
an
the
entity
taxation
known as
portion,
2020 Wine
that
Merchants?
increases the overall
Yes, I
payment
am.
quite a bit.
Why are you familiar with it?
It's a prominent purveyor of wine in Los
Objection,
Angeles,
Your Honor.
California.
Foundation, hearsay.
I don't
I
see
mean,
the
potentially
hearsay,
in the
but
millions.
I don't know.
Foundation at this point.
Can we
Anticipating.
have
Sure,
you approach?
sure.
All right, so they're doing a little sidebar right now. So we are talking right now, or hearing from Edward White, and he is an in-person witness. Earlier this morning, we heard from Terrence Daughtry, and he was testifying on behalf of ACLU. And so it's this whole discussion about the money. So Amber Heard had received $7 million as part of settlement negotiations and the divorce from Johnny. And so in the settlement paperwork, they had agreed that she was going to be donating quite a bit to ACLU, if not the entire thing. She did not, in fact, end up doing that. So they're kind of going through that in today's testimony.
I think where we left off is I asked you, how were you familiar with 2020 Wine Merchants? And if that's not what I asked
I
you,
know,
that's
we
what I'm
want to
asking
hear
you
what they're
now.
talking about, Michael.
2020 is a highly recognized purveyor of wine in Los Angeles, along with other companies.
Well, that is his job.
What involvement, if any, did you have with 2020?
I satisfied the liabilities that Mr. Depp incurred, which at the
Tax
dissolve of the
liabilities.
marriage was approximately $160,000.
Do you continue to pay Mr. Depp's wine bill?
Yes, I do. We pay all of his obligations, but his wine bill has shrunk to virtually zero because he does not consume that much in the way of wine. He's made a few gifts around Christmas time, but his
Are
wine
they
bill
going to say
has
his
gone
wine bill
to virtually
was,
zero.
was expensive because of Amber?
Are you familiar with a Spanish wine known as Vega Sicilia?
Yes,
How are you familiar with that?
I know that it is a very expensive wine, and that I know that Ms. Heard enjoyed drinking the wine.
Yep, there you go.
How much does it cost?
Amber was the one that was.
The cost of the
Drinking
wine
all
is
the wine.
approximately $500 a bottle.
Were you ultimately charged
I hear
with
ya, Cody.
paying for the wine that was served on at the birthday party on April 21,
Thanks,
2016?
Michael. Everything's on the.
Yes, I
Top
was.
music
We rendered the
attorney
payment
YouTube
in
channel.
balance.
Excuse-
Uh,
I'll overrule the objection. It's fine.
How many bottles of Vega Sicilia were served?
At Ms. Heard's request, she ordered 5 bottles of the wine and 8 bottles of other wine, so a total of 13 bottles of wine.
Thank you, Mr. White. I have no other questions
All
of
right,
this
Cross.
witness at this time.
Cross-examination.
I don't drink a lot of wine. I don't drink a lot in general, so
Thank you, Your Honor.
we're gonna have to quantify
Good
how
afternoon,
much
Mr. White.
Ms. Heard
Good
is
afternoon,
drinking.
Counselor.
Your firm has been paid millions of dollars by Mr. Depp and his companies since you
All
were
right, now we're
first
gonna
retained in
attack
2016,
bias.
correct?
Correct?
And in fact, you're being paid for the time that you're sitting on that witness stand today, aren't you?
No.
Well, you charged the time that you spent in connection with legal proceedings in this case, correct?
That's correct, but I charge for my time.
Yeah.
And it's the same time
You answer
that
my
I would
question, sir. In
charge-
fact, you charge $710 an hour for your time, don't you?
Counsel, if you let me complete my answer, I'll
No,
be happy to respond.
700 an hour.
Sir, please just,
Not too
please try to
bad.
stick to the question that I'm asking you. You've had your chance to go well beyond the question being asked, but if you could just please stick to the question I'm asking, you would go a lot faster.
Could you, I don't think your microphone was on there. Well, it's not really, badgering's not
Yeah,
an
thank you, Your
objection,
Honor.
but
Thanks.
that's all right. Sir, just if you could answer the question that's asked, okay? Thank you.
Badgering is not an
Thank you, Your
objection.
Let me start over, sir. You
it kinda
charge
is.
Mr. Depp $710 an hour for the work that you do for him, don't you?
Hey, Max,
That
thanks for
is my
being here.
standard rate for all clients, and yes, I do charge that rate to Mr. Depp.
And you gave a deposition in this case. You remember that on or around February 2nd, 2022?
Yes,
And that day, you charged Mr. Depp $710 an hour for the time that you spent giving testimony that day, didn't you?
Okay.
yes, I did.
So,
And
most
you
people
charge
charge
Mr.
for their
Depp
time.
$710 an hour for anything that you do in connection with his account, don't you?
Yes, I do.
You have about 6 people working on Mr. Depp's account, correct?
I'm sure he does.
Yes,
And whether through you or one of your colleagues, your main contact with Mr. Depp and his companies is his sister, Christy Dombrowski, correct?
no,
Who is your main contact?
Mr. Depp.
One of your colleagues maintains active communication with Christy Dombrowski, correct?
Could you ask the question again, Counselor?
One of your colleagues maintains active communication with Christy Dombrowski, correct?
No,
I know what he's getting at. So Christy is Johnny Depp's sister, and we heard Christy very early in the trial give her testimony. But obviously she's involved. She's been his manager, kind of like his personal manager for a long time for his entertainment career. And so she talked a lot about the relationship and
Yes, sir.
Johnny's background in her testimony. But he's trying to get to something juicy here about why the relationship between this guy's financial company and the sister matters.
Mr. White, I've handed you the transcript from your deposition that you gave in this case on February 2nd, 2022. You remember that? We did it over Zoom?
yes, I do.
Okay. And you swore to tell the truth in that deposition as best you can, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Can you turn to page 116 of your deposition transcript?
certainly. Did you say 16, Counselor?
116, 116.
Okay, I have it.
And now you just answered no to my question about your colleagues maintaining communication with
I'm
Christy
glad you're
Dombrowski,
here.
but at your deposition
We're doing it
just 2 months
together.
ago, on line 11 of page 116, the question is, what about Christy Dombrowski? The answer that you gave is, I do not. I haven't spoken to Christy in some time. One of my colleagues probably maintains an active basis of communications between her and our firm. Did I read that right?
Spike, we
Yes,
can
but
recap.
you
That was
you
my
need to
question,
find the
just if
term.
I read that right, sir. Now, part of the services that you provide, that your firm provides to Mr. Depp, is to pay the bills to his doctors, correct?
Yes,
And you make payments relating to maintenance or damages to his properties, correct?
yes,
Now, you were contacted in early 2016, right? You testified to that to do work on behalf of Mr. Depp?
we were engaged in March of
Engaged.
2016, if that's your question.
Right. Right, around February 10th? Is that when you were first contacted?
Engaged as in a
do
legal
not recall the
professional.
date.
And you said
kind
you
of
were
engagement
introduced
or
by executives,
accountant
a guy named
engagement?
Richard Smith at the Bank of California?
Yes,
Mr. Depp owed significant amount of money to the Bank of California at that time, correct?
no.
He owed money to the Bank of California, correct?
I do not recall that he had an active indebtedness with the Bank of California. He had other commercial loans, but not with the Bank of California.
And after you were brought on, you developed an understanding that Mr. Depp's financial status was very challenging, correct?
It was challenging, but we had an ability to resolve the problems if they were properly addressed.
He had liquidity problems, right?
He had substantial assets in excess of his liabilities, but he had short-term obligations that needed to be satisfied.
Let me just ask that again. At the time that you were brought on, he
He's
had
speaking
liquidity
accountant.
problems, correct?
Can you define liquidity for me?
I'm asking you. At the time he was brought on, he had liquidity problems, correct?
I would define the term liquidity as where the short-term assets are less than the short-term, are less than the short-term liabilities. And if that's how you're defining liquidity, I would agree.
So like he
In
has less cash to
Layman's
pay, but he
terms,
might
terms
have
that
property
I can understand, because I don't
example.
speak all the kind of business school terms that you speak. He didn't have enough money at the time, correct? He was spending more than he was bringing in, correct?
Yes,
And you gave him advice about how he could hopefully get out of that problem, correct?
yes.
Okay. And just to be clear, Mr. White, because you've testified to some degree of knowledge about wine that you allege that Ms. Heard requested. So you seem to have some knowledge of Mr. Depp's spending. Ms. Heard didn't buy any of the dozens of properties that Mr. Depp owned, correct?
Correct. He owned the assets prior to their marriage.
She didn't pay $5 million to blast Hunter Thompson's ashes out of a cannon, did she?
Not to my knowledge.
She didn't buy a yacht
weird question.
that she couldn't afford and then have to sell it to J.K. Rowling, did she?
Not to my knowledge.
So they're trying to say Johnny
Now let's
is
talk about that meeting on April 21st,
frivolous with his
2016.
money.
You
He
said the
blows it on
meeting
stupid
started
stuff.
at about 7:30 p.m.
Yes,
and lasted till maybe 9:30, is that right?
yes.
And you have no idea, no personal knowledge where Mr. Depp went after he left that meeting, do you?
That is correct. I did not go with him. I went home.
And at that meeting, Mr. Depp was given some catastrophic news about his business, correct?
He was given news that he needed to address a number of financial issues, but I had a strategy and plan to fully resolve them.
Good man.
That news that he was given that night was catastrophic, wasn't it?
No,
May I approach, Your Honor?
All right, yes, sir.
When you use words like it was catastrophic, wasn't it? You need to define it because for you're already dealing with someone who doesn't want to answer in a way that's favorable to your case or that's going to be harmful in this case to Johnny Depp. And so to try to be maybe even more specific. So for example,
Mr. White, let's do this again
see what
with
he has to say.
another under oath series of statements. You gave testimony in the UK trial, did you not?
yes,
And that
it's
testimony
common,
was under oath,
Cody, it's very
correct?
common.
yes.
All right. And in front of you, I have your testimony from the UK trial, and you gave that testimony on behalf of Mr. Depp, correct?
I gave it honestly.
Okay. You gave it on behalf of Mr. Depp, correct? You were one of his witnesses called.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you please
just
turn to
answer the
page
question, yes.
865?
He's trying to be careful in how he responds. He doesn't want to hurt Johnny Depp's case, but just answer simple questions.
And
It's okay.
it's just the second page of the document, upper left. Before that, the questions are talking about this meeting on April 21st, 2016. And you were asked the question, now Mr. Depp was given some catastrophic news about his business. Answer, that is correct. Did I read that right?
You did, but remember,
That was just
when
my
I get a
question.
chance
You
to
answered my
respond.
question, sir. You answered
I
my
did not
question.
define that term.
Sir, Mr. You'll have a chance, the attorney will get back up and redirect you, okay? So
I
we
don't
just
feel like
answer
this
his
witness
question,
was
that's fine.
prepared well.
And the reason I'm asking, sir, is because
He has
you
a
just
chance
gave
to
the exact
clarify
opposite
when this is
testimony
done.
here. So that's why we
You have
pointed
to
that
just
out.
answer the question.
Now, you, at this meeting, you had a discussion about his financial affairs and a necessity to formulate a revised business strategy and plan, correct?
Yes.
And you talked about the following financial information. You talked about bank obligations and tax liabilities, right?
Yes.
Which means money you owe to either the government or banks, correct?
Yes.
You talked about assets that he needed to sell, correct?
Yes.
Properties and things like that that he needed to sell to generate money.
Correct.
You talked about ways to reduce spending, correct?
Yes.
And you talked about how to get new engagements, correct?
Yes.
How to get new gigs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not how to get them, but
The
I
need to
encouraged
get
him to get them.
We'll talk about his
I'm not an
sister's
agent.
testimony,
I
but she
appreciate
did
I
the same
curious
thing.
engagements.
And understood.
She wasn't really answering
You
simple
talked about the
questions.
need to get new gigs to generate additional money to help address these financial woes that he was experiencing, correct?
Yes.
You also told him at that meeting that his taxes, he hadn't paid taxes in years, correct?
No, that's not correct. That he had not paid any taxes in years is not correct.
That he was significantly delinquent in federal tax obligations dating back years, correct?
I don't know how you're defining years. There were delinquent liabilities. I addressed them and formulated a plan.
Yeah, if this is the monies guy, you don't want to be telling Johnny Depp his stuff is way overdue. That's not good. Yikes. I like how the attorney's huffing and puffing. He has to remember that mic is right there.
And you talked about the significant delinquent tax liabilities that would run into the millions of dollars for taxes unpaid, correct?
That is correct.
And so after receiving this catastrophic news, as we discussed, you have no idea where Mr. Depp went when he walked out of the doors of his office, correct?
I do not know
Okay.
where he went.
Can you pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 936, please?
What's the word? The terrible news being you owe federal taxes. So I'm sure that's not great news for everyone, but I don't know if they're about to say he
And
went on like a bender
Mr.
or
White,
something.
I'm not gonna, this is a long document that we can scroll through, but what I'll represent to you and Michelle can sort of scroll down is that these appear to be Mr. Depp's tax returns for Mr. Depp and his companies from 2009 to 2019. Do you see that?
Yes.
And these are returns as part of your role as his CPA firm now, his business manager firm now. Your firm prepares these tax returns, correct?
Yes.
And you maintain these tax returns in the ordinary course of your business, correct?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I know there's going to be plenty of redaction to do, but I just would like to move these into evidence. I don't plan to publish them or anything at this point.
Objection, Your Honor.
You want to approach?
Getting rid of Amber would be a sound financial investment. Well, unless you are getting divorced, right? So in most instances, when you're getting divorced, a whole lot of your assets are then being split in half. So it's actually very expensive. And some people will be reluctant to actually get a divorce for those reasons, because it's just financially going to be kind of devastating to each of the parties. In this case, when you're dealing with celebrities,
so
there's a
936
lot more
will come
money.
into evidence, but I'll wait for redactions and they will not be published. Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. White, you understood that Mr. Depp showed up hours late for work on Pirates 5, correct?
That is not correct.
How would he know?
Are you familiar with Tracy Jacobs?
Yes.
That's Mr. Depp's former agent, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that she was serving as his agent, part of her job responsibilities, to the best of your understanding, was to communicate with you about Mr. Depp's financial affairs, correct?
To the extent she had knowledge,
Right.
yes, she would communicate.
And you and she did communicate about Mr. Depp, correct?
During the period of her engagement, yes, we did communicate.
Okay. Can you pull up Defendant's Exhibit 874, please, Michelle? Mr. White, do you see here this text exchange between you and Tracy Jacobs?
Yes.
And your texts are in white and Miss Jacobs are in blue, correct?
Yes.
Michelle, could you please scroll to the document that is Bate stamped Depp 19246? It's about the fifth or sixth one down, please.
You're right. He can blow it if
Mr.
he
White,
wants.
do you see here the third text down from Tracy Jacobs to you saying, thanks, I got a call from Disney last week saying he showed up 5 hours
Objection, Your
late
Honor,
for
hearsay.
ADR. It's not hearsay, it's party opponent. She's his agent. I'm happy to approach if you'd like to discuss.
All right, little sidebar. Maria, what does JD's finances have to do with an abuse case that's making the court take too long? A lot of people have bad taxes, doesn't mean they're abuser. This is so ridiculous. You're right, but and we're having to cover a lot of things. For example, did Amber Heard make the promised payments for the charitable contributions? And we spend obviously half of the day talking or listening to the witness through ACLU saying, no, we actually stopped receiving those payments after, I think it was 2018. So there on out, she wasn't making the annual payments that she had, agreed that she was going to make. So while, of course, well, does that then go to, is Johnny Depp an abuser, or was there abuse in the relationship? No, not quite. But there's a lot of other kind of nuanced issues happening in this case. And so, for example, right now we're talking about finances. And we're on cross-examination, right? So the attorney for Amber Heard is currently doing the cross-examination. And so he's getting into things like, well, wasn't, Johnny Depp, wasn't Johnny Depp very frivolous with his money? Because in the direct examination, they were saying, well, didn't Johnny have a huge wine bill that he had to pay all the time? And then obviously teeing it up and turning it around to say, well, didn't that basically end after he left Amber Heard, to then make the correlation Amber was drinking a lot? And we've heard that from other witnesses that Amber liked to drink her wine. We've also heard testimony in regards to, Johnny Depp's alcohol consumption and drug abuse. But I do understand what you are saying, and good points. This gentleman on the stand is proving to be the smartest person in the room. No disrespect to the judge. He's definitely a smart guy. There's no question about that. And as it relates to kind of elusive responses that witnesses give, they needed to have been prepared, and particularly this witness, to be prepared by the appropriate person's counsel to say, hey, on cross-examination, they're going to be challenging you on things. They're going to be trying to attack your credibility. And when they do these things, just answer truthfully. If you don't know, say, I don't know, but then it ends there. So when you hear, for example, Mr. Edward White, he continues to kind of go off script. He'll sort of answer the question, and then he'll start elaborating on something else to explain something. You're not really supposed to do that. You're just supposed to answer the question. And then on redirect, so when the attorney for Johnny Depp gets up at the very end to do redirect, he will use that opportunity to clear up anything that needs to be cleared up. So then Mr. White will have an opportunity to, say his piece and to expand on whatever it was that he wanted to say. And so we talked about, for example, Johnny Depp's sister. So Christy, when Christy was testifying at the beginning of trial, she was doing the same kind of thing on cross-examination, where she was being very elusive and she wasn't really answering questions, or even just simple stuff. For example, when shown one of her text messages saying, hey, I'm really concerned about Johnny Depp's drug use, or Johnny, I'm really concerned about this and that, I really think that you need to stop. When just asked, hey, did you send these and were you worried about your brother? She wouldn't just answer the question. And I think ultimately that impacts the remaining of the testimony that she gave. So just in that, is she a credible witness, right? So, is she being honest and truthful, even when it comes to the bad facts? So, if you get up there and you say, yeah, I was concerned. My brother did seem to maybe have, a drug problem, or maybe he was drinking a little too much. I was concerned. However, I never saw him hit Amber. I never saw any abuse. I never have seen him abuse any person in his entire life. I think that's all very compelling testimony. So as it goes to when you start getting a little elusive, it conveys this impression on the jury that maybe you're being a little too biased in your responses. Now, we're still in Johnny Depp's case in chief. So that means all the witnesses that we have heard thus far are all for Johnny Depp's case. We haven't gotten to Amber Heard's side of the case just yet. But nonetheless, it's important that even though we all know that these witnesses are there to support Johnny Depp, that they still come off as truthful and transparent and believable. And so, we were talking about Isaac, the childhood friend, and the testimony that he gave, and he was just kind of a favorite right out the gate for the majority of us watching, just because, although he is a childhood friend of Johnny Depp's, and Johnny Depp paid for many, many years for Isaac to live in penthouse suite kind of style in Johnny's building for free, so his friends could pursue his painting career. Despite all of these things, Isaac still came off very believable, very truthful, very honest. And especially on cross-examination, when asked these hard questions, when asked these, various things that aren't great for Johnny Depp's case, if you still answer truthfully, it just overall makes you seem like you are credible and believable. I see some new people joining. Hello, hello. Glad you could be here.
Mr. White, we just saw the text that I started reading. Do you remember that text?
No worries.
Yes.
Okay, we're just gonna show you and move for admission of that page of the document with that text. So I just wanted, since you won't see anything else, I just wanted you to orient yourself that is the text that we were just reading. Okay.
Fine.
All right. That page or that text?
They're going to redact it, just that one text.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of this document as, I guess we could call it Defendant's 874A.
Okay, 874A with the redactions. All right, thank you.
Mr. White, you just testified a few minutes ago that you didn't have any understanding of Mr. Depp showing up late for work on Pirates 5, but in fact, you received this text from Tracy Jacobs that says, "Thanks. I got a call from Disney last week saying he showed up 5 hours late for ADR work in London for Pirates 5. I really need to speak to him before he starts work on his next project in LA." Did I read that right? Permission to publish this, Your Honor?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Do you want me to respond?
I just wanted to ask you if I read that right, that you received this text message saying in part, "I got a call from Disney last week saying he showed up 5 hours late for ADR work in London for Pirates 5.
ADR
I
is
really
where
need
you
to speak to him before
re-record
he starts work on this next
vocals
project in LA." Did I read that
over
right?
the video, because there was an audio issue when they were
I believe
shooting.
you read it right.
Thank you. Now, at some point you became familiar You can go ahead and take that down, please. Thank you. At some point, you became familiar, as you've testified, with what Amber planned to do with money that she got from Mr. Depp in the divorce, correct?
It was the understanding from the beginning the money would be contributed to charities.
The two charities, so the
Contracts were
Children's
drafted in that
Hospital,
manner.
Children's Hospital of LA and the ACLU, correct?
That is correct.
And as we discussed, you wrote checks to those two organizations that were part of Mr. Depp's divorce payment, but they were just sent directly to those organizations, correct?
Yes.
Can you please pull up Defendant's Exhibit 1639? Actually, let's do Defendant's Exhibit, yeah, we'll do 1639. Thanks.
Yeah, guys, so they're in the thousands. Exhibit 1369. There's
Mr.
a
White,
lot.
this is a letter from you to the
Goodness.
ACLU Foundation dated August 24th, 2016, correct?
Yes.
And as part of your work for your 100 or so high-profile, high-net-worth clients,
This is
you've helped
Edward
clients
White?
set up pledged contributions to charities before, correct?
Yes.
He's a
And
finances
sometimes
guy
those
for Johnny
payments
Depp.
are made over a period of time, correct?
Yes.
Charitable donations aren't always paid at once, correct?
That is correct.
And when you make payments on behalf of your clients to charities, is it customary for you to send a cover letter like this?
In some instances, yes. In some instances, no.
Okay.
But in
And-
all instances, that there is a signed agreement and an understanding of when the
Yeah,
payments will be made.
sir, that wasn't my question. My question was just, is it customary for you to send a letter like this? And I think you've answered that. And so when you send letters like this on behalf of your clients, do you prepare such letters in the ordinary course of your business?
In some instances, yes.
And when you, in the instances in which you prepare those letters, do you then maintain those letters in the ordinary course of your business?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for admission of Defendant's Exhibit 1639.
All right, objection?
I completely agree.
All
sir.
right, 1639 in evidence, and you can publish it to the jury. Thank you.
And Michelle, if you could please just scroll through, Mr. White, I just want you to see there's the letter here. We'll
covered
come
this
back
a
to the
little
letter. And then
yesterday.
there's the check
I'll talk about it on
that you're
break.
making out to the ACLU. Then there's, I guess, the envelope or something, right?
Correct.
Okay. If you can go back to the letter, please. So in this cover letter, you tell the ACLU that you're enclosing a check for $100,000 and that the donation is being made in accordance with Ms. Heard's pledged gift of $3.5 million to the ACLU Foundation, correct?
Yes.
And you also write that the check represents, just go ahead, that the check represents the first of multiple scheduled installments, correct?
It was my understanding that
I'm
she
just
was
asking
going
if
to
that's what you
contribute
wrote.
$3,500,000
I'm just asking if that's what
to
you wrote,
children.
sir.
You've asked me a question. I'm trying to respond.
No,
to
I was actually just asking
I'll
if
have to
that's
check
what
it
you
out.
wrote.
Thank you.
Would you ask the question again, please?
Yeah, you write, this check represents the first of multiple scheduled installments to honor the full amount of Ms. Heard's $3.5 million pledged gift.
It was my understanding she was going to contribute the money, and that's
Okay,
consistent
sir,
with my
I just
response.
asked if that's what you wrote. I think you've answered that. Can we please pull up Exhibit 1596?
Mr. Edward White is getting
Your Honor,
annoyed.
before we go to the next exhibit, can I raise an issue at the,
Okay,
at the
sure.
bar? Thanks.
So to answer your question, yesterday we heard testimony from Johnny Depp's prior entertainment agent. Now, one thing that kind of came out was that even though this agent was the agent for not only Johnny Depp, he was also the agent for Amber Heard and is no longer friends with either of them because of this whole situation, unfortunately. But a lot of the questions had to do with what was Johnny Depp's career look like, right? So what kind of opportunities was he getting? And then when did that change happen? And so wasn't it because of the article that Amber Heard put out that then he was dropped from Pirates of the Caribbean 6? And he denied a lot of that. He denied that as far as any bad press on Johnny, that it
Mr.
seemed
White,
to be from
is
Amber
this
Heard
a letter
and not other articles.
similar to what we just looked at for the ACLU?
But we'll get back to
A
this.
letter that you wrote that accompanied the check that you sent to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles Foundation.
Yes,
And this letter and the whatever payment, or sorry, this letter is one that you would have prepared in the ordinary course of business, correct?
yes,
And you would have maintained this letter in the ordinary course of business, correct?
yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of Exhibit 1596.
All right, 1596 in evidence. You can publish it to the jury.
And Mr. White, this letter also says at the bottom that it represents, the check that accompanies this letter represents the first of multiple scheduled installments to honor the full amount of Ms. Heard's $3.5 million pledged gift, correct?
When I composed the letter, that was my understanding that she was going to give $3.5 million to charity.
You're really not answering my question. My question was simply, I understand that you want to speak your own narrative here, but my question was simply that this letter says that this check represents the first of multiple scheduled installments to honor the full amount of Ms. Heard's $3.5 million pledged gift, correct?
We can both read the letter, and the answer is yes.
Thank you, sir. Now, you hosted a dinner with Mr. Depp and Adam Waldman in 2016, correct?
I do recall that.
And that was the first time that Mr. Depp had been introduced to Mr. Waldman, correct?
I do not know that. Be factual.
Now, you are not an expert on California divorce law, right?
Correct.
And you're not an expert on the division of marital property in California, correct?
I'm not an expert, but I've been actively involved in numerous cases involving the disillusionment of marriage and the related proceeds that are distributed to each respective party.
Now, you can't give any sort of legal opinion or testimony as to whether or not Ms. Heard would have been entitled to more in the divorce settlement with Mr. Depp than she received, correct?
I'm not an attorney at law.
They were
I
talking
don't
about
have
that
legal
yesterday
opinions.
and saying
So-
that she could have gotten 14
You've never
million,
met Amber Heard,
but she only
correct?
took 7.
That is correct.
The first time you've ever seen her in person is here in this courtroom this afternoon, correct?
That's my recollection.
And you have no personal knowledge of whether
Hopefully that
Mr.
clears
Depp
up, let me
engaged in
know.
domestic abuse against my client, correct?
I've never witnessed him involved in any abuse, and obviously I've never met her. I could not respond to that inquiry.
So the answer to my question is that it's correct, that you have no personal knowledge of whether Mr. Depp engaged in domestic abuse against Amber Heard.
That is correct. I have no knowledge.
Nothing further.
Period.
All right, redirect.
So redirect, the attorney for Johnny Depp is now coming up, and this is the opportunity to clarify and let him say his piece.
Can we pull up defendants 1596?
Thank you very much, Charles.
Sir, could you read the last line of your letter?
So going back to this letter,
This check represents the first of multiple scheduled installments to honor the full amount of Ms. Heard's $3.5 million pledged gift.
What was the schedule for those payments?
They were scheduled. I don't know the schedule because I don't have a copy of any pledge that she made.
she
if
didn't
that's
make a
your
pledge.
question.
Okay, thank you very much. One more question.
She said she'd
Has
donate.
Mr. Depp paid
without
all
a
his
pledge.
taxes?
Yes, he has. He's fully current with all of his federal, foreign, and state tax obligations.
Thank you.
All right, no further questions, Mr. Dennison?
No further questions.
All right, is this witness subject to recall? No. No? All right, Mr. White, you're free to go. Thank you, sir. Just be very careful stepping down there, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, we'll see who's next. We're going to
All right,
talk
your
about the
next witness is
ACLU
remote witness,
donation
correct?
issue when we have a little
All
bit of a break.
right, let me just
But let's see who we have next.
wait a moment.
Your Honor, may we just ask what witness they plan to call?
I see a Mr. Connolly in the lobby, so I'm assuming that must be the one. Okay, good. Good, I'm glad we got that one. All right.
Cody says Mr. Depp is willing to admit his faults. Never has he claimed to be a saint, but he's also never going to let someone portray him as the devil or as the monster, as seems to be the more used term. Is he being beamed up? No, it sounds like they're lowering or raising a screen, so they may have. It sounded like they had an in-person witness, but for example, if they
Mr.
have a
Connolly, can you hear me?
video deposition, someone's appearing on screen, so that's why they have the screen coming down.
Hello.
Yes,
Oh, yes.
yes, sir.
Sounds like a video deposition.
Yep. Hi. Yeah.
Or I'm sorry,
Can you
video
turn your
testimony.
camera on, sir?
This is live.
No. Okay. There we go. There we go.
All right, sir, if you could raise your right hand.
So she has to swear
Do you
him
swear
in.
affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right.
All right, and good afternoon, Mr. Connolly.
Good afternoon.
And would you please state your full name for the record?
Malcolm Connolly.
And Mr. Connolly, where are you testifying from at the moment?
From home, Essex, UK.
And where do you live?
I live in Essex, UK.
Mr. Connolly, what is your occupation?
At present, close protection operative. I've had a couple of professions. I'm a bricklayer to trade. I was in the corrections facility, Pentonville, HMS prison. But right now, yeah, I'm a protection operative.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit, just generally, what that means?
It means looking after the personal well-being, physical well-being of any client you're detailed to.
And how long have you been in the personal security business?
25 years.
Over the course of those 25 years, have you had any other kinds of jobs?
Yeah, as I said, I was a corrections officer for Her Majesty's Prison.
Are you familiar with the plaintiff in this case, Johnny Depp?
I am, yes.
And how do you know Mr. Depp?
I know Mr. Depp maybe about 23 years ago, 24 years
Yeah, right.
ago. I worked for a company called Music and Arts. The guy who owned that company was Jerry Judge. Jerry started working with Johnny way back in the early days, and I was detailed with looking after Johnny's ex, Vanessa Paradis, and Jack and Lily Rose, Johnny's kids. And my job was just to make sure they were safe when Johnny was at work. So that job, after about a year and a half, 2 years, Johnny asked me to go with him directly, and we'll find someone else to do the kids and that. And that's how I came across Johnny. That's how I personally met Johnny Depp.
Can you ballpark for us about what year that was?
Oh, 2006.
Okay. And can you generally just tell us a little bit about what you do for Mr. Depp as his security guard?
I will escort Johnny to everyday public places. Make sure he's okay. Make sure he's not in any danger. First of all, do the recce. You go along first. There's usually a two-man team. It's a two-man detail. You go along, do your recce, make sure all the ins and outs are sorted. No compromises. Any risks involved? Do a risk assessment. We do the job. I look after him. Basically, I look after Johnny whenever we're in public domain. Whenever we're going to be in a public domain, I will look after Johnny.
Okay. And how about the defendant in this case, Amber Heard? Are you familiar with Miss Heard?
I am familiar with Miss Heard, yeah. I first met Miss Heard in probably 2000, and I don't recall the actual date, probably about 2010, maybe around there. She came into the UK to do a promotional job for a movie called Drive Angry.
Drive Angry.
My boss, Jerry Judge, asked me to take the detail. Went and met Amber, started the job. Amber was with her ex, Tasha, and I looked after Amber for a week. Pleasant week, it was fine, great.
Does anything
Then,
stand?
sorry, yeah.
I think this is the first time
After
we've
that
seen
week,
Amber
I never seen
looking almost a
Amber
little more
again
feminine,
until
like
we
her
did,
hair
Rum
is not
Diaries.
quite as tightly
the premiere
dressed,
after show we were on Diary.
and it seems to be much more
Okay,
put
so
together.
let's move to the Rum Diary then. When did you see Miss Heard? Well, how did you see Miss Heard?
So
in
Rum
connection
Diary being
with,
the film that Amber
the Rum
Heard
Diary?
and Johnny Depp co-starred in.
We done the Rum Diary premiere. We went to the after show party. You know, I'm busy working, doing my job, myself and Jerry Judge. Seen Amber across the floor. Amber seen me. Just basically come across the floor, said hello, how are you doing? You know, the usual chit chat. We chit chatted for a minute or two. Johnny asked me how I actually knew Amber. Explained. That's the last I spoke to Amber that night. I was too busy with Johnny. I was doing my job, you know.
Did you know at the time? And well, let's back up for a second. Where was that premiere?
Do you know what? I don't recall. I think it was in LA.
Okay.
I don't actually recall.
Okay. Did you know at the time of that premiere in probably LA, but possibly somewhere else? Did you know at the time that Mr. Depp and Miss Heard were seeing each other romantically?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't. I mean, I surmised that.
Yeah, that's a
there
little
was spark there,
surprising.
you know, it wasn't till.
You could guess if you're the
maybe
personal security.
Maybe a few days later, a few nights later, we were at a dinner party somewhere, a promotional thing, and Amber and Johnny were basically, you know, sparking up. They were getting together. Then I sort of assumed that, you know, there was a romance happening there, budding there, you know.
Okay. Over the course of Mr. Depp and Miss Heard's relationship with each other, about how often would you say you saw them together?
Well, in the beginning, actually not a lot, you know, not a lot. Maybe once a week, twice a week at a push. But then it started, it started maturing into something, into a relationship. So more often as the time went on, you know.
And as time went on, did you have an opportunity to observe how Mr. Depp and Miss Heard interacted with each other?
At the beginning, you know, lovey-dovey, everything was great. The honeymoon period was on, and it was, it was good. I mean, it was great to see Johnny happy again. Amber was, you know, lovely, charming, as she usually is, you know, good as gold. And then things,
Good as gold.
You know, things started to change. Amber started to change. Amber started getting a bit, I would say, a bit more feisty, demanding, you know. I could see that Amber wanted to wear the pants in this relationship. That was pretty obvious.
Something we've heard
And-
from other witnesses.
What in particular made you think that you observed personally?
Just the way, you know, if something wasn't quite right, or Amber could get a bit frosty at the drop of a hat. So as time went on, you know, I could see them change. I could see Amber change. I could see Johnny getting quieter. You get into the car and nobody was speaking, and you know, it just things started changing. Amber started getting a bit more grumpy, shall we say.
Grumpy.
How did she get along with you?
Absolutely fine. Amber was fine with me. Amber was never anything but professional, polite with me. You know, she was. No, Amber was fine with me.
Did you ever see or hear any arguments between Mr. Depp and Miss Heard?
when you say see, I heard. I mean, I could hear at times in certain accommodations we'd be staying at. I could hear Amber, yeah, screaming. You know, I could hear shouting and bawling, and yeah, I could hear it going on. Yeah, but I mean, I wasn't there every single night. When we're working in the UK, there's nights maybe I'd get home because Jerry would be there. But yeah, I did hear. Yeah, definitely for a fact. I could hear sometimes the shouting and bawling. You know, it's mostly I could hear Amber screaming. You know.
And about how, I recognize this was years ago, but can you estimate for us how regularly that happened?
I can't say regularly. I can't say it was like every day, but you know, it got more regular. It got more often than not.
Did you ever witness any physical violence between the two of them?
No, never. I'd never seen any physical violence.
Okay.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing people would do in front of security. It's not a thing that would happen in front of myself or Jerry Judge or Sean Bett.
But was he called
It
in
just
after
wouldn't
the
happen.
fact? Did he
It
help
wouldn't
to clean
happen.
up something after the fact?
No, I never seen any physical.
What did he
security.
see?
I never seen any hands on. No.
Did he hear?
Okay, what do you mean
Don't
you
slap
never
me.
saw any hands-on?
Well, I never seen any slapping or grabbing or punching or hitting. I never seen any of that physically. Well, I tell you what. There was an instance, maybe two incidents that come to my mind. One incident was on a private plane. I can't recall if it was a domestic flight or an international flight. I'm sitting. Johnny and Amber, or Johnny, whoever he's flying with, will sit up at the foretable. There's a foretable up aft, and myself and my colleagues will sit down the forward end of the plane. So I usually look up the fuselage that way, with my back to the nose. Amber had her back to me. Johnny's sitting across the table, and there's a bit of bickering going on. I can't hear because, you know, you're talking about jet craft. I can't actually hear, and it's more animated than verbal. And I see a lighter, a plastic lighter, bounce off his chest. Boom, bounce off his chest.
I mean,
So
that's
right away I
assault
think,
if
well,
you throw
this
something
is
at
gonna
someone.
escalate. It's
Even
either
if it's a
going to go
lighter.
one way or the other. I don't think it came to much. I remember Johnny just sort of, you know, smirking and looking away as if to say, you know, well, what is that? It kind of attitude, you know. And Johnny tips his hat, puts his head against the window, and whoa, I'm out, you know. Another time, I was at the Loft apartment. I was in the security room in the Loft apartments with a security guard called. Do you know what? I can't recall if it was Sean Bett or a guy called Donovan. Anyway, I got the text. I was down there to pick him up to go to the West Hollywood accommodation, and I got the text.
Objection.
No.
To the extent he's going to talk about what the text is, that's hearsay.
You can just tell us what you observed without without recounting the contents of the text.
Okay. I'm instructed to go and get Johnny, and because we're leaving. Time to go.
Objection. He just said what he was instructed to do. That was
All right, I'll sustain the objection if you can.
What did you do after you received the text?
I go to the Loft apartment. The door's ajar slightly, just a what we call a crack in the door. Push the door open, and I go in. Shouting, there's a bit of shouting going on. I can't hear. I'm in the wrong area of the apartment. But as I turn to the left into the more of the lounge area, there's a soda can. I don't know if it's
The
a
white
Coca-Cola
noise you're
or
hearing
a
is coming
Sprite
from
or I
the
don't know what it was.
courtroom's audio.
But it's launched from the mezzanine, and Johnny's had this huge TV, the biggest TV I've ever seen. In fact, but this, and it's on this mechanical arm, which is an actual piece of artwork that Johnny had got commissioned. And anyway, this big mechanical arm holds this TV. So this can of pop, you're going to call it pop, smashes on that, but by force, let me add, because it made a bang, boom. and all I can hear is it spraying all over the place. Johnny has already got his jacket on and a bag over his shoulder. That's why he's called me in, because we're leaving. I just pick up the other bags, 2 bags, pick up the 2 bags, put my hand through Johnny's arm and say, right, boss, we're leaving. We walk out the door. We walk out the door and we go. Halfway to the West Hollywood, Johnny's already calmed down, he's like, man, can you...
Objection,
No,
objection
but-
to the extent he's talking about what Mr. Depp is saying.
All right, I'll sustain that objection. Continue.
If you have, I think we can move on.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Next question.
Just to clarify, Mr. Connolly, when the soda can was launched from the mezzanine, where was Mr. Depp in relation to where the soda can landed?
Probably 10 feet, maybe 10 feet back from that. 10 feet back from that.
Okay, and just to make sure we're on the same page, when you refer to the loft apartments, what are you referring to?
The downtown LA Eastern Building.
Okay.
We've heard a lot about the downtown Eastern Building, where Johnny Depp and
What
Amber
was
Heard
your?
were living together.
Did you form any understanding as to where, as to who had thrown the soda can?
Objection, speculation.
Hold on, sir.
Speculation, foundation.
I'm just asking him if he formed an understanding, and he can state the basis
He
for
said he
that
didn't see it,
if he did.
If you want to lay a foundation.
Did you? To your knowledge, was Ms. Heard present in the apartment at the time?
Objection leading.
Yes.
I'll allow
I could
it.
hear her. I never seen her physically, but I could hear her voice. Yes.
And where did her? Could you tell where her voice was coming from?
Upstairs, just upstairs.
Okay.
She wasn't on the lower apartment with us, so I can only imagine she was upstairs.
Other than the cigarette lighter and the soda can, anything else similar to that you observed?
No, I can't say no.
Did you ever observe any physical injuries on Ms. Heard?
Never,
Important
no.
question. Nope.
How about on Mr. Depp?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it started off with maybe a scratch once in a while, a swelling, but it got more. It got more, yeah. I'm not talking he was marked every week or every 2 weeks, but yeah, he sustained marks there, definitely. He was getting marked.
Well, what other than a scratch?
And can you describe for us what you can remember?
Objection, Your Honor. Can we
the presence
can we
of-
approach
Okay,
for a minute?
all right. Hold on, Mr. Connolly, for a minute.
Yeah, because we heard from the island manager, and she was talking about how she observed or had heard that there was a fight going on, and that Johnny came out and he had not quite a laceration, but he had a red mark on his nose, and apparently, something had been thrown at him. We heard Johnny Depp testify that, of course, Amber Heard has chucked different things at him, including the vodka bottle, which then resulted in the severing of his finger. We went through that whole thing. So that's pretty important testimony that we're hearing right now from this security guard.
So, Mr. Connolly, you can continue responding. I think the question was just, can you generally describe for us what you remember about the marks you saw on Mr. Depp?
Yes, as I was saying, in the prison service, you're taught to pick up, log in your mind, mental logging in your mind, marks, bruises, bully patterns, stuff. What I noticed straight away was most of these marks and most of these things through my training is happening in the left-hand side of his face, and it would be scratches on his neck, maybe a fat lip in the corner, maybe a bruising on the eye socket. Dull impacts, except for obviously the scratches, maybe on below his left ear. Sometimes it'd be two marks, 2 lines, 2 trams, 1. Yeah, yeah. And it was
What
getting,
did
it was
they
getting
appear
more
to
regular.
be?
I'm not, as I say, not every week.
I have
but
scratch
it's
marks over
definitely
my
happening,
arms
yeah.
from cats, you know?
Can we see Plaintiff's Exhibit 162, please?
Thanks, Cody.
And Mr. Connolly, are you able to see the picture on, I assume you can see it on your screen.
Yeah, just give me a second, please. Yeah, hi, yeah.
And do you,
That is, yeah, I know that picture. I took that picture.
you
that
took the,
picture's on the audit. Yeah, I took the picture.
can you just quickly tell us what this picture is?
We want to
This
see.
picture
Put
is,
the picture on the screen.
Miss Heard and Johnny's honeymoon on the Orient Express on the East Line from Bangkok to Singapore. You travel through Malaysia, stopping at Kuala Lumpur and a few other places on the way down. And that is in the dining coach, I think. Yeah, dining coach, that's what that is. The guy on the left there with the silver band around he's the waiter. He's the waiter with the detail to look after us. The guy in the bow tie, he's guest relations manager.
Mr. Connolly, just hold on one second. Before we continue describing the document, I'd move for the admission of Plaintiff's Trial Exhibit 162 and that it be published to the jury.
Any objection?
I'd like to approach it.
Okay.
Okay. So we didn't get a chance to actually see whatever this picture was that the security guard allegedly took, but you know, so far this is pretty good for Johnny Depp's case. You know, again, this not just the island manager, but from testimony from even the apartment.
All right, and
front
Mr.
door
Connolly, I
manager
apologize
yesterday.
for cutting you off, but could you just continue to describe for us what we're looking at in this picture?
Here we go.
Yeah, as I said, the guy in the bow tie, he's guest relations manager. He was detailed to, fix us up anything we needed, to excursions and transports and stuff. Then it's Miss Heard. The guy, that's the chef who looked after he cooked for us. He's a great chef, by the way. Yeah, he looked after us. And that's Johnny. And I also noticed, if you look at that picture, like I said, on the left-hand side, under his eye, there's a swelling. And you see a swelling just on the left-hand side of his nose and under his left eye.
You do see something.
And what do
there,
you
but
interpret that swelling to be?
There are a lot of shadows on his face.
So what do I interpret it as? That's either he's walked into a door, or a door's walked into him.
Okay.
Or doors walked into him.
Can you tell us anything, and we can take this down, I think. Thank you. Mr. Connolly, can you tell us, well, first of all, do you recall what year Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard went on their honeymoon in the picture we were just looking at?
That would, is it 2013? 2013?
Okay, and were you, well, you testified that you took the picture, so you were there, I assume?
Absolutely, yes.
What can you tell us about that trip generally, and particularly focused on how Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were interacting with each other?
Started off good. Johnny's cabin was maybe 15 meters down the corridor from mine. There was no cabins in between. There was like storerooms, like blankets and cutlery and stuff. So the cabin was quite not a big massive distance, but it wasn't like the trip started fine, absolutely fine. I think it was 5 days maybe. 2 days, 3 days into the trip, I can see Johnny going down. I can see him coming down. He's just not enjoying this. He's not enjoying this. But I can't. It's not my business to step in and that. I just do my job. But I can see he's not enjoying this. He's not happy. He's not happy.
Did you ever observe any arguments between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard in this time frame?
Just not arguments, but some frostiness. Miss Heard sort of demanded that we have our own dining cart, if you like. So me doing my job, I inquire to the guest relations guy there that you've seen in the photograph, and he quite rightly tells me that there's other
Objection,
VIPs
hearsay,
on the
objection,
train.
hearsay.
All right. Objection to hearsay. All right.
I think we can move on.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
sustain the objection. Next question.
All right, so Mr. Connolly, well, taking a step back for a minute and changing topics slightly, have you ever seen Mr. Depp use any drugs? I don't think
I've
that's...
seen-
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Yes, I've seen him smoke marijuana. I had my suspicions. I have my suspicions that when he goes off to the bathroom, he probably does a bit of cocaine. I've never seen him do it.
This guy's very honest.
Never do a line or anything of cocaine in front of me, or Jerry Judge, or Sean Bett, or anybody. Mr. Johnny Depp would never compromise my
I'd want to
my
follow up.
license,
Why do you
my
believe it was
position,
cocaine if you didn't see it?
and embarrass me like that. It wouldn't happen. So to answer to your question, I've seen him smoke weed, yes.
You noticed any particular... What changes, if any, have you noticed in his behavior when he's under the influence of marijuana?
Important information.
To be honest, a bit more relaxed, no sort of uptight. But he's not out of his head. He's perfectly functioning. I mean, you can talk about anything, any conversation you want to talk about. He's neither up nor down with that. He really isn't. He's got a very high tolerance for any substance, Johnny. I would say so.
We've heard
I
that
think
prior
Jack Sparrow's
in the
more drunk
testimony.
than Johnny Depp, to be honest.
So, okay, so that's marijuana. What about alcohol? Same question.
He used to like a wine, and the last I would say the last couple of years that's dropped drastically as well. It's in my last year with Johnny, it's quite actually rare now. It's not rare, but he's not a big boozer now. He's not a boozer now. He's not. And he was never out of his head in wine. He was never, I think I've seen drunk in the 20 odd years I've been with Johnny. I think I've seen him drunk twice.
And Johnny
when I
testified
say
he's
drunk, I
not
mean
an
drunk.
alcoholic,
Other than that, there's
He had a
not
drug
a lot of
problem,
difference in Johnny's demeanour
but no
or
issue with
behaviour.
alcohol.
Well, you're drinking alcohol or smoking weed,
Okay. And finally, same question for the time periods when you formed the suspicion that he was under the influence of cocaine.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry, could you ask me that again?
What changes in his behavior, if any, did you observe on those occasions when you suspected but didn't know for sure that he was under the influence of cocaine?
Well, again, due to
Talk
the
about this.
training I had in, the HMP prison service, it just seemed a bit more, I don't know, happier, up, not so down, But I wouldn't say he's not leaping around kicking his heels or anything. You pick his guitar up and then he gets right into his guitar, and there's no major changes really.
We heard
he
Johnny
just-
talking about his love of
he's
music
fine,
and the reason why he did not cut off his finger.
Now, you mentioned you traveled with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard on their honeymoon on the Orient Express. Where else have you traveled with them?
Well, all over the world, Japan, China, Germany. I've been all over the States. Went to an interesting little place, Hicksville. That's an interesting story. Yeah, all over the world. Australia. Went to Australia. As far away as that.
And let's take that one at a time. Hicksville, you said?
Yeah, Hicksville. Yeah, it's a funky. I remember it. 'Cause I remember Hicksville it was a funky, it's a real funky place, you know.
Yeah, for any of these staff people working with Johnny.
With Amber
Traveling the
and
world.
Johnny, they've decided they're going to go to Hicksville for a day and a night, I think it was. So we all off the trot. Amber and her friends all head off, and Amber travelled with Johnny, but her friends all head off. I followed. Johnny wanted to drive his own. He got a beautiful big customised Plymouth. I think it's a 58 or 50. I don't, not an expert, but he had to customise. So he wanted to drive this car. Myself and his assistant at the time, Nathan Holmes, we use another of Johnny's cars, and we follow behind. We get to Joshua Tree, Hicksville. Stunning as you can imagine, but it's done in a very funky theme. All the caravans are different themes. You know, like mine was an old railway kibbutz with the old fort, the fairground fortune teller head that turns around and stuff, all that kind of stuff. Johnny's and Amber's caravan were maybe about 15 metres from mine, maybe 20 metres, and that was done in like the 1950s styles, like kitschy 1950s kind of thing. And the rest of the caravans were all, like zombies coming out the ground, and it was craziness. Anyway, we go there. There's a lot of booze. All the booze comes up. Party starts. Well,
I feel like we need to move this along a little. I just yawned. That's not good.
So there's loads of booze and weed, and I think there's mushrooms, some psychedelic mushrooms. That's going around. But the night gets a bit ruined as I'm watching exactly what's all happening. Everybody's happy, Johnny, Amber.
It's interesting how there's mostly men
as I'm watching
on the
what's
right side of the
happening,
screen in the
I can
courtroom.
see Johnny and Amber getting a bit animated.
And then mostly women on the left
And
side.
they were probably about maybe 25 feet from me. So I approach, and I've been working with Johnny that long. I don't have to really say anything. I only have to look at his face. And Johnny can talk to me through his face. He doesn't need to say a word. So I know what's happening. So,
The key of a good
and I say in a
team.
low voice, guys,
They
let's be
know what
private.
you need without
let's
even
start
having
walking
to
towards the
say
caravan.
it.
Let's take this away from here. As I'm walking ahead, just going ahead, I can hear sort of bickering behind me. Johnny's trying to talk in his low tone, keep things a bit quiet. But Amber's getting a bit more loud, a bit more narky.
Narky.
So anyway, I get them to the caravan, I put them inside, and I go up to my caravan. That's it. Don't hear anything, don't see anything until the next morning. We sit around the pool, a couple of hours, and we head back to LA.
What
Mr.
prompted you
Mr.
to...
Modes, before do you have a lot of direct still left in this matter?
I think she wants to take a break.
Not terribly much more, maybe 10 to
We're going
15
to take
minutes.
our afternoon break then.
There you
Ladies
go.
and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take your 15-minute afternoon break, and then we'll come back and continue with the testimony, okay? Don't do any outside research and don't talk to anybody.
All right, so we're waiting for the jury to now leave. All right, so there's something I wanted to circle back on. I know there was a question in regards to, the loss of work. That was a little while ago. And then, we kind of talked about
All right,
the...
Mr. Connolly, I'm going to put you in the lobby for our break, okay? I'm going to come back and put you back in about 4:20 our time, okay? In about 17 minutes, okay, sir? All right, just don't discuss your test.
Okay, Your Honor.
All right, just don't discuss your testimony with anybody till then, okay?
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
All right, there we go. Yeah, so as it relates to, the testimony from the agent that we heard yesterday, and just talking about the loss of work for Johnny Depp, was that basically his fault because, he was just doing such a poor job whatever, showing up late to work, or there are all these bad articles. They went through some of the articles. Did you see this? Did you see that? And basically the agent just continued to say, no, at that time when I was representing Johnny, the kind of known thing around, the studios was that Amber Heard had made these claims, of course, originating from this article, but she had made these claims obviously earlier when they were getting divorced as well. And so because of that, that's why Disney wanted to be hands off. So again, all his opinion, but going to Johnny Depp's position that, Amber Heard statements were defamatory and did result in significant damage to Johnny Depp's career, which he will never be able to recover from. There we go. So we are over, I know some are on the East Coast, some are watching on the West Coast. This is definitely starting very early for us over here, closer to the West Coast. But, it's been interesting. So today we've had 2 witnesses, or actually, no, that would be 3. So we're on number 3. We've heard from Edward White. We just heard from Mr. Connolly, who is the security guard. And then this morning we heard from the representative of ACLU. And that was the last piece I wanted to touch on. So as it related to the testimony that we heard in regards to donations that were supposed to be made by Amber Heard from the amounts that she was receiving from the divorce, which was $7 million, she had said that she was going to donate that money to the benefit of the ACLU. And I believe it was, the Children's Hospital. And then she, in fact, did not make all of those donations. So one of the questions that came up for ACLU was, basically, didn't she kind of breach the agreement? And what was said was, no, there was never really, an agreement in that she had committed those funds. And so we kind of loosely use the word donate versus, actually having made the commitment and signed a piece of paper. These are the donations that I'm going to make over the next 10 years or whatever those installment payments are going to be. So, I thought that the testimony, honest, but if there was going to be a bias, you would think that there might be some bias from ACLU because, she has nonetheless benefited them. It sounded like in just a shy of $1 million. She also, we heard, in regards to Elon Musk. So Elon Musk had earmarked a $500,000 donation to the organization on her behalf. Johnny Depp additionally had made a donation in connection with Amber Heard. So, she has done some good things for this organization. So I think they probably are a little reluctant to say anything badly about her. Yeah, that's right. A pledge. Thank you. It was escaping my mind for a moment. So the difference between a donation versus a pledge is actually making that commitment to pay those monies. So guys, I've had my phone kind of ringing off the hook as we have been on this. I run a law firm. I'm doing it today from our little back office so I could be with you guys and kind of check in for a little bit. It's been fun to kind of do this the last couple of days. We have a long way to go. This is a 7-week trial and we're still in Johnny's case. Now, at some point soon, we are going to have the conclusion of Johnny's case. We're going to get into Amber Heard's case. And so that means we're going to hear testimony from Amber Heard herself. And, we've heard from a forensic psychologist as it relates to an evaluation done on Amber. And so she needs to deal with that. And so I'm wondering if, number one, we're going to have her own, so Amber's going to call her own forensic psychologist who might be able to look at the report drafted and to, crack holes in it and to attack the veracity of it. Or conversely, I'm curious whether they did a similar type of evaluation on Johnny Depp, right? So will we have a forensic psychologist come and discuss, their evaluation of Johnny Depp? So this is definitely going to get more interesting before anything else happens. And I still feel like they are building a very strong case for Johnny Depp, but we have only heard one side of this thus far. All right, guys, so I got to go do the lawyer thing. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to get out of here, but I did create a playlist. So if you want to go and check out any of the other videos and live streams that we have done for this trial, just go over to Top Music Attorney. There's now a playlist, and I will see you guys on the next one. I'm Top Music Attorney, Miss Crystal.